In just 47 seconds, $3.6 million in buried evidence. Thomas Massie didn't come to play games. He came with receipts, cameras rolling, Congress watching. What did the Kentucky congressman reveal that made the FBI director's face drain of all color and his carefully constructed defense crumble in real time? March 15, 2025, 2:47 p.m. The House Judiciary Committee chamber buzzed with the electric tension that only comes when someone's about to get exposed. Mahogany panels reflected the harsh fluorescent lights as reporters packed the gallery, sensing blood in the water. At the witness table sat Kash Patel, FBI director for barely 3 weeks, adjusting his tie nervously as he faced what would become the most devastating 7 minutes of his career. Patel walked in like an investigator who had seen too many lies, but today he'd become the target. His stack of classified briefing folders sat before him like a shield. His FBI badge glinted under the lights. Behind him, his legal advisors whispered frantically, reviewing talking points that were about to become completely useless. Across the chamber, Thomas Massie sat like a prosecutor who'd already won his case. The Kentucky congressman's desk was covered with documents that would soon destroy everything Patel thought he knew about damage control. CIA files, FBI 3 Heather 2 reports, banking records, names that would make Washington's elite panic. At exactly 2:47 p.m., Chairman Jordan gaveled the session to order. The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized for 5 minutes. Massie rose slowly, deliberately. The chamber fell silent. Director Patel, Massie began, his voice cutting through the chamber like a scalpel. Yesterday you told Senator Kennedy that Jeffrey Epstein trafficked women only to himself. Is that your testimony under oath? Patel's hands tightened on his briefing folder. According to our review of credible evidence. Yes, sir. 47 seconds. That's how long it took for Massie to destroy that lie. Director, I have here FBI Form 302 documents from the Southern District of New York investigation. These are victim testimonies in your possession. Massie held up a thick folder. According to these victims who cooperated with the FBI, these documents detail at least 20 men Jeffrey Epstein trafficked victims to. The chamber froze. Even the court reporters stopped typing. Patel's face went pale. Sir, I cannot comment on ongoing. Let me help you remember. Massie interrupted, his voice rising. One Hollywood producer worth $347 million. One royal prince. One high-profile individual in the music industry. One very prominent banker worth $1.2 billion. One high-profile government official. One former politician who received $890,000 from Epstein-linked accounts. Each name hit the chamber like a thunderbolt. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Fox News cut to breaking news alerts. CNN's phones started ringing. One owner of a car company in Italy. One rock star. One magician. At least 6 billionaires, including a billionaire from Canada, worth $4.7 billion. Massie's voice was methodical, relentless. We know these people exist in the FBI files, Director Patel. The files that you control. Patel tried to recover, his jaw clenched as he leaned into his microphone. Sir, multiple U.S. attorneys from 3 different administrations have reviewed. Have you launched any investigations into any of these people? Massie's interruption was surgical. Have you even seen these 32 documents? Silence. For seconds, cameras zooming in on Patel's frozen expression. I have asked my FBI agents to review the entirety of the Epstein files. Patel stammered, sweat now visible on his forehead. And we're working with Congress. That's not what I asked. Massie's voice was ice cold. Have you seen the 32 documents where victims name their abusers? Patel's knuckles turned white as he gripped the table. If I personally, no, but the FBI had. The chamber erupted. Reporters frantically typed. Twitter exploded with Tempel exposed trending in real time. The FBI director had just admitted he hadn't even read the most crucial evidence in America's biggest trafficking scandal. So how can you sit there, Massie continued, his voice cutting through the chaos, and tell the Senate there are no names when you haven't even looked at the documents? Patel was trapped. His legal team was passing notes frantically. His face had drained of all color. We are not in the practice of releasing victim names. I'm not asking you to release them, Massie thundered. I'm asking if you've investigated them. The room was electric. Even hardened congressional veterans had never seen an FBI director dismantled this systematically. Behind Patel, his advisors looked like they wanted to disappear. But Massie wasn't finished. He reached for another document, this one marked with CIA letterhead. Director, have you investigated any of the CIA connections? Have you seen the CIA file on Jeffrey Epstein? Patel's voice cracked slightly. I can speak for the FBI, and that's presuming there's a CIA case file. There is a CIA file, Massie exploded. I have 4 documents here. Jeffrey Epstein's story played out for years in plain sight. Acosta is quoted saying, I was told Epstein belonged to intelligence, and to leave it alone. The chamber was in complete chaos now. Phones buzzing. Reporters shouting questions. The reality was sinking in. The FBI director was either incompetent or complicit in a massive cover-up. Massie held up another document. What Epstein's bodyguard warned about his CIA connections. Fox Digital reports, Epstein's private calendar reveals planned meetings with Obama admin officials, CIA chiefs. Wall Street Journal highlights, Anhid Barak's 36 meetings with Jeffrey Epstein. Each revelation was another nail in Patel's coffin. The man who was supposed to be cleaning up the FBI was now exposed as just another bureaucrat protecting the elite. Will you commit today, Massie demanded, to personally reviewing every single 32 document? Will you personally meet with the victims? Patel looked broken. The FBI and the professionals handling the cases. Well, that's not good enough. Massie's voice boomed across the chamber. These victims deserve better than your bureaucratic double talk. The damage was complete. In less than 7 minutes, Thomas Massie had exposed the FBI director as either grossly negligent or actively participating in a cover-up. The man who was supposed to bring transparency to the FBI had just proven he was part of the problem. As the hearing continued, the implications became clear. If Patel couldn't even commit to reading the evidence in America's most high-profile trafficking case, what else was he hiding? If the FBI director was protecting billionaires and politicians at the expense of trafficking victims, what did that say about American justice? By 3:15 p.m., Patel resign was trending nationwide. By 4 p.m., 3 senators had called for his immediate resignation. By evening, CNN was running wall-to-wall coverage of the collapse of Kash Patel. But the most damning moment came in Massie's final question. Director Patel, if you're willing to meet with social media influencers to release documents to them, but you won't personally meet with trafficking victims, what does that tell the American people about your priorities? Patel had no answer. His career imploded in 47 seconds. But the consequences would last forever. The truth about Epstein's network remained buried, protected by the very institution that was supposed to seek justice. And Thomas Massie had just proven that when it comes to protecting the powerful, the FBI would rather sacrifice its director than reveal the truth. In the aftermath, as Patel's team hustled him out through a back exit, avoiding the cameras and shouted questions, one thing was crystal clear. The Epstein case wasn't closed. It was barely even open, and until someone with actual courage takes control of those files, the victims will continue waiting for justice that may never come. Sometimes the strongest weapon isn't a badge or a subpoena. It's a congressman from Kentucky with a stack of documents and the courage to ask the questions everyone else is afraid to ask. Because when the FBI director can't even commit to reading evidence of crimes against children, the system isn't just broken, it's criminal. What happens when the people we trust to seek justice become the ones covering it up? What happens when protecting billionaires becomes more important than protecting victims? Thomas Massie just showed us the answer. The whole facade crumbles in 47 seconds. If this story shattered your faith in the justice system, don't just watch, like, share, and subscribe to Channel Name, where the truth gets exposed and the powerful get held accountable. Hit the bell. The next revelation might expose your congressman. What would you do if you had access to those 32 documents? Drop a comment below and let us know who you think is on that list. But the destruction was just beginning. At exactly 5:23 p.m., 3 hours after Massie's surgical takedown, Patel's phone started buzzing with calls he couldn't answer. Senator Ted Cruz was the first to issue a statement. If the FBI director hasn't even read the most important evidence in the Epstein case, he has no business leading our premier law enforcement agency. Within minutes, the dominoes began falling faster than anyone anticipated. Senator Josh Hawley released a scathing video. Kash Patel just admitted under oath that he doesn't know what's in his own files. American families deserve better. The video went viral instantly, racking up 2.3 million views in the first hour. By 6 p.m., Patel was huddled in his FBI office, with his crisis management team, watching his reputation disintegrate in real time. His deputy director knocked urgently, entering with a grim expression. "Sir, we have a problem. 3 FBI field office directors are asking for emergency meetings. Morale is collapsing." The numbers were devastating. FBI approval ratings, already fragile at 42%, plummeted to 31% overnight. More damaging still, internal FBI surveys showed that 67% of agents had lost confidence in their director's leadership. Some field offices were reporting difficulty recruiting new agents as the Patel scandal made headlines worldwide. At 7:15 p.m., the White House communications director's phone rang. It was Trump's chief of staff, his voice tight with barely controlled fury. "This Patel situation is becoming a liability. The president is getting questions about why he nominated someone who can't even read his own files." But the most explosive revelation came at 8:42 p.m., when investigative journalist Glenn Greenwald broke the story that would finish Patel completely. Sources inside the FBI had leaked that Patel had actually received a briefing about the Epstein 3.2 documents on February 28, just 2 weeks into his tenure. The briefing memo, stamped "Eyes Only, Director," explicitly mentioned 20 PA's high-value targets, including foreign nationals and domestic VIPs. Patel had lied under oath, not just evaded or deflected, he had committed perjury before Congress. The leaked memo revealed even more shocking details. The briefing noted that several of the individuals named in victim testimony had made substantial political donations totaling $47.8 million to various campaigns and PACs. One unnamed billionaire had donated $12.4 million to organizations that had publicly supported Patel's nomination. At 9:30 p.m., Patel's personal lawyer called an emergency meeting. "Kash, we need to discuss resignation immediately. The perjury allegations are serious. If they can prove you received that briefing, and they can, you're looking at criminal charges." Patel's hands shook as he reviewed the leaked memo. His signature was clearly visible on the acknowledgement page. There was no denying it. He had known about the names, the evidence, the cover-up, and he had lied about it under oath, to protect people who didn't even know his name. The irony was cruel. Patel, who had built his career prosecuting corruption, was now the corrupt official being prosecuted. The hunter had become the hunted, and Thomas Massie had pulled the trigger. By midnight, Patel perjury was trending globally. Late-night comedians were already writing jokes. Saturday Night Live announced an emergency sketch. The FBI director had become a punchline in less than 10 hours. But the real consequence came the next morning at 6:47 a.m., when FBI Deputy Director announced he was calling an emergency meeting of all section chiefs. The message was clear. If Patel didn't resign, the FBI's senior leadership would demand his removal. At 8:15 a.m., Patel's motorcade pulled up to the Hoover Building one last time. Agents who once saluted him now looked away. Security guards who had proudly served under him now whispered about his disgrace. The man who was supposed to restore honor to the FBI had instead brought it to its lowest point in decades. The final blow came at 10:30 a.m., when victim advocate Virginia Roberts' lawyer released a statement. Director Patel's admission that he hasn't reviewed evidence of our client's abuse is a betrayal of every trafficking survivor in America. His resignation isn't enough. We demand a complete investigation into who else knew and stayed silent. At 11:45 a.m., exactly 21 hours after Thomas Massie first asked his question, Patel's resignation letter hit the president's desk. It was one paragraph long. I resign my position as FBI Director effective immediate. I apologize to the American people for my failure to meet the standards of this office. The letter was published 30 minutes later. No explanation, no defiance, no promise to fight back, just surrender. As news broke, Thomas Massie was asked by reporters how he felt about bringing down an FBI director in less than a day. His answer was vintage Massie. I didn't bring him down. He brought himself down the moment he decided protecting billionaires was more important than protecting children. The Epstein files remained sealed. The 20 PUS names stayed hidden. The billionaires and politicians went back to their lives, protected once again by institutional silence. But something had changed. The American people had seen behind the curtain. They had watched their FBI director lie under oath to protect the powerful, and they wouldn't forget. Kash Patel's 24-day tenure as FBI director became the shortest in the agency's history, but more importantly, his spectacular collapse became proof that even the most powerful institutions in America will sacrifice anyone, even their own leaders, to keep certain secrets buried. The international fallout was immediate and devastating. By noon, the British Parliament was demanding answers about the royal prince mentioned in Massie's testimony. French intelligence leaked that they had been investigating Epstein's European connections for months, only to be stonewalled by the FBI under Patel's leadership. Most damaging of all, Israeli media revealed that Ehud Barak's 36 meetings with Epstein had included discussions about American political leverage operations. The implications were staggering. Foreign intelligence had potentially compromised American officials, and the FBI director had been complicit in covering it up. At 2:17 p.m., exactly 24 hours after Massie's initial question, acting FBI Director Sarah Chen announced the creation of a Epstein task force with unlimited resources and authority. Her first order: every 302 document will be reviewed by week's end. 47 seconds to destroy a career. 21 hours to end a directorship, 24 hours to finally begin seeking justice. But for the victims still waiting for someone to read those files and pursue those names, the countdown continues. Because truth has a way of surfacing, even when FBI directors try to bury it. This dramatized story is inspired by real congressional testimony and public documents. All interpretations and dramatic elements are fictionalized for commentary and educational purposes. This is not intended to defame, but to explore themes of accountability, transparency, and justice.